A man who loves animals couldn't resist rescuing a moose that showed up at his front door. He didn't anticipate seeing the moose again after assisting it and allowing it to return to the wild. But because of his generosity, something very amazing occurred a few months later. Welcome to USA Stories channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. Nature lover Erikas Pla had made the decision to live in the countryside of Lithuania. He had not seen any wild creatures at his home in the woods, and he seldom ever had guests. He was therefore rather taken aback when he discovered something unexpected at the gate of his home. He noticed a young moose cuddled up close to a little tree there. Knowing that a newborn moose indicated its mother was likely close by, Erikas exercised caution. He was aware that moose can be extremely powerful animals, and that even their horns had the power to harm or even kill humans. Particularly around the period when newborn moose are born, they may charge at someone they see as a threat. He was aware that he needed to exercise greater caution and take preventative measures. Upon closer inspection, Erikas saw that the little moose was injured. Its fur was covered in insects, and it had bleeding wounds, maybe from branches prodding it. The mother was unable to be found, and this young moose, who was likely less than 2 weeks old, still needed mom. Unfortunately, it appeared like local hunters could have murdered her. This defenseless newborn moose would be a prime target for wolves or foxes if its mother were absent. Despite its beauty, nature may be quite difficult at times. Erikas couldn't do nothing but stand there. He was resolved to attempt to improve the moose's situation, despite his lack of knowledge on how to assist it. He took the defenseless moose in his arms without much consideration, and he brought it into his living room, where he made a cozy space in front of the fireplace. He believed the cosmos had given him this guest for a reason, and he was going to do all in his power to rescue it. Despite his lack of expertise in animals, Erikas recognized right away that the young female calf was not only physically hurt, but also had suffered from acute trauma. He could tell that she was starving and fatigued from the experience she had endured. But how could he aid in her recovery, and what was he to feed her? He was in dire need of some wise counsel and direction. When Erikas called each of his friends individually that night to ask for advice on how to assist a moose calf, he encountered a wall of incredulity, resistance, and condemnation. Everyone he talked to advised him to put the moose back in the wild. They would all celebrate if she lived, but if she passed away, it would likely be for the best. What would a wounded, orphaned moose do in the wild after all? This Lithuanian man had one final trick up his sleeve, despite his companions having utterly abandoned him. He called animal services to find out how he might assist this ailing animal. He understood that time was running out and that immediate action was required since the calf continued to deteriorate with each passing second. On that particular day, Animal Services was overloaded with animals in need, so even though the situation was urgent, no one was available to react right away. Erikas would thus have to trust his instincts and tend to the wounded animal on his own. Someone would stop over to lend a hand if the moose survived until the next day. The following 12 hours turned into a fight for survival. Erikas tried to lure the famished calf with some milk and leaves because he didn't know what to feed it. His strategy was successful, and she began to eat with anticipation. He had a glimmer of optimism that she might actually make it through the night. He left his patient in the middle of the living room, set up a temporary tent, and went upstairs to get some much-needed rest. He hoped that early the following morning he could turn the calf over to the knowledge of Animal Services. Erikas was relieved when help finally showed up the next day, but he was met with the most unbelievable news. The animal caretaker informed him that the center would not be able to care for the moose and advised him to give the defenseless calf to the local hunters, where at least she would die quickly. Incredulously, he firmly turned down the offer and swore that he would never allow it to happen again. He was now personally responsible for this calf. Knowing that it was against the law to keep wild animals and rear them like domestic ones, he kept the stringent conservation rules in mind. But there had to be a way out of this predicament that didn't include the poor moose dying. In just one night, Ericus had developed a deep affection for this distressed calf. He would borrow, steal, or beg, but he had to obtain control of his moose somehow. The fight ahead would not be simple. The juvenile moose was already considered dangerous by animal services, which also maintained that it was against the law to retain a wild animal. But Ericus just dug his heels in and wouldn't be relocated. He was finally allowed to retain the moose by the cops. At least his uncompromising attitude bought the calf some time on Earth, but it did not win him any friends that day. Giving a kid, whether human or animal, a name is the next natural step after adoption. Since she was a female baby, Ericus decided to call her Emma. He just concentrated on the good things at the time, not realizing the load and duty of taking care of her until much later. Ericus developed unfamiliar paternal feelings, but Emma was able to trust her new father and caregiver with ease. The quantity of time spent together sped up the development of the relationship that would eventually become nearly irreversible. It was nearly impossible to imagine the kind of sacrifices Ericus made for his moose kid. He gave up the luxury of his bed to spend several nights with her outside in order to foster trust and protect her safety and emotional health. He knew all the time that Emma belonged in the wild and that she would eventually need to be reintegrated into the forest, perhaps sooner than he had anticipated. Emma gradually adapted to the woodland over the course of the ensuing months. At first, she was limited to going into the outdoors with her father, but as time went on, she came to understand that this was the house meant for her, and she even began eating real forest food. Ericus was both pleased of Emma's development and sorry to see her go when she finally had the courage to go into the forest by herself. Like a docile kid, Emma would always be home by sunset, even if the amount of time she spent in her new habitat increased daily, until one evening, she just did not come back. Though he worried about her for a few sleepless nights, Ericus realized it was time to let her go and have faith that he had done everything he could. He hoped she would have a long, happy life in her native environment because he believed he would never see her again. However, he was going to get a fantastic surprise. Ericus saw a visitor at his gate one day when he was gazing out his window. Emma had arrived to greet him. They would spend many hours together, playing and swimming in the pond during the day, marking the beginning of a new chapter in their relationship. Once more, Emma accompanied him, and at night she went back to her house in the forest. Fortunately, Ericus was able to persuade the local hunters to spare Emma. The biggest surprise occurred one morning when Ericus noticed Emma, his adoptive daughter, coming toward the home. She appeared much more well-fed as normal, having matured into a mature moose. Ericus had the incredible realization that he was going to be a grandfather as Emma turned to face him. Emma was about to become a mother herself and had completely acclimated to the wild. The guy who had rescued her life so many years ago would always hold a special place in her heart, even if she was now living as a wild moose. Are there any more examples of people and wild animals becoming close friends like this that you are aware of? Even if raising a wild animal may be dangerous, would you be willing to do it? Kindly leave a comment with your ideas. I appreciate you watching. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.